You are looking live right now at Globe Life Field. The Toronto Blue Jays are taking on the Texas Rangers there. And in this particular stadium in Arlington, Texas, they can fill it to capacity, 40,000 plus strong. And apparently they already have the game but minutes away. Doug Eldridge is back with us, the sports agent extraordinaire, Daily Agency founder. You know, Doug, I do want to get into the governor's, tit for tat with Major League Baseball itself. But the fact that baseball is back and games resumed over the weekend. And of course, in this particular case, to a packed stadium, they're 100% capacity. They're okay with that. Baseball badly needs the fans back, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. Baseball, of the major four sports in the United States, football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, none is as dependent on fans in the stadium as baseball. It's certainly America's pastime, traditionally the oldest sport in our country, and in so many ways those traditions and old world ways of enjoying sports are really persisted with baseball. They took a 70% hit in revenue during 2020, the COVID year, by virtue of essentially having no fans in the stands for the course of the season. They were uniquely impacted in that regard. So I think for the Rangers and hopefully for other teams across the league, this is going to be the first in a positive string of dominoes.
By the way, we're learning that the first pitch at the Rangers game is going to be a teacher named Audrey Simmons. So a teacher gets to throw out the first pitch. So I guess she beat you to it, Doug. Let me get your sense of, it's always a reminder, this virus is still with us, right? Nationals games were delayed because of a virus within the team. And this spreads. This cancels other games as well. Where do you see this season going?
Well, that's a great question, because when we saw the start of last season, it was largely defined by fits and starts, which is to say there was an outbreak here, which has that butterfly effect, which spread across the division and eventually the league. But you referenced, Neil, to go back for a second, when we look at the bigger picture of how the season's going to go, to President Biden's interview, we sat down with Sage Steele, who's fantastic, on ESPN, and was talking about why he doesn't think that the Rangers should open at full capacity and that you should, I believe his soundbite was, listen to Fauci and the scientists. The problem for a lot of sports fans, which in this case is a synonym for voters, is that the science hasn't been calling balls and strikes, which, pun aside, is meant to say call it objectively and consistently. It's largely felt inconsistent and subjective. So for many Texas Rangers fans, this is a breath of fresh air. On March 1st, the 7-day average in Texas was 7,693. On April 1st, it was a 53% drop. March 10th was when Governor Abbott issued that mandate. So in the context, I mentioned all these numbers for a reason, in the context of science, much like the back of a baseball card where you study the statistics, it actually makes sense, at least based on how the trend line is going, that Texas would try and implement this. It's an outdoor stadium. They're going to be wearing masks, but for eating and drinking. And the gentleman had the sound bite about the hot dog. I was certainly jealous of that guy, and maybe you were too. But we're all hungry, no pun intended, for this sense of normalcy. And sports has always provided for that for us as an American populace. So obviously we're hoping for the best. But I have to believe that the Rangers and other teams across the league are prepared for the worst in the event that this tends to go sideways on them.
Then we've got this controversy, Doug, over, the Georgia, new voting law that's already prompted Major League Baseball to move the All-Star game from there. And I'm wondering now, with Governor Abbott refusing to throw out the first pitch as he was originally scheduled to do, and now a number of groups, forming to boycott Major League Baseball for its boycott of Georgia. Where is this all going?
And that's a great question, sir, because I don't think this is a unique one-off in terms of how this is being treated. Sure, you could go back to the 2017 NBA All-Star game in Charlotte with the transgender bathroom bill. The NBA pulled the All-Star game from North Carolina. Obviously now the MLB All-Star game in 2021. But your question really hedges on where is this going, right? In a couple of days, we start the Masters in earnest, Thursday, right? With Sunday being typically the most viewed day. There's already a hashtag boycott the Masters campaign being put into place to try and essentially move the Masters, right? Uproot them from Augusta National, the state of Georgia itself, and move them elsewhere, right? We're already starting to see a growing trend and national sentiment towards possibly boycotting the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics because of China's record on human rights. So this is really not a one-off, but I think what affects so many American fans is that they don't want the inconsistent application of equality, meaning if we're going to protest the goose, let's protest the gander. And I think that's where you see Americans pushing back and saying, heck yeah, I'm going to go to the game. I'll wear my mask as I'm required. I'll stand for the anthem. I'll thank my ushers. I'll pay my tab when I leave the parking lot. I'm going to get a Coca-Cola and a hot dog and a pennant for my boy. I think Americans are hungry, literally and figuratively, for a return of normalcy, and I believe sports is going to provide that.
Yeah, if they have will call to pick up their tickets, I think they have to show an ID. But that's a whole nother argument we can have
Yes,
at another time. Doug Eldridge, very good seeing you again, my friend.